Welcome. This is thrilling, looking out, seeing all of you, and I know there's many people on the live stream as well. Welcome. My name is Martina Droth. I'm the director of the Yale Center for British Art. Hold on. No, that was the wrong time. We are here to celebrate a truly amazing artist. So please give it up for Dame Tracey Emin. Yeah. Welcome, Tracey. Before we sit down, just a few words. Many of you know that this museum has been closed for 2 years. And I just couldn't be more thrilled and honored to welcome you all back. And not only to reopen our doors, but to open with Tracey's wonderful exhibition, I Loved You Until the Morning. Tracey Emin's remarkable 30-year career has made her one of the leading artistic voices of our time. Her pioneering works have explored subjects of the most intimate aspects of femininity, sexuality, and exploring her own experiences as a woman. And she's never flinched from addressing challenging themes. And I do want to say to all of you today that we may talk about some of those themes: sexual violence, rape, abortion. Those are some of the subjects of her work. I think it's fair to say that Tracey's work has left an indelible mark on our culture, and she has been widely recognized for that. Most recently, she was appointed Dame Tracey by King Charles. And I think and I think that already speaks volumes to her incredible contributions as a spokesperson and as someone who really stands for art and culture. I want to acknowledge the many people that created this exhibition and beautiful publication. Neither would have been possible without the incredibly generous support of our lenders. Some of you are here today, and I want to thank you very sincerely for letting us have your treasured Tracey Emin paintings to show upstairs. I also want to thank our generous donors. Arthur Zeckendorf supported the exhibition and the book, and he's here with us today. And George Economou and the Economou Collection, who gifted one of the paintings that you'll see upstairs, I Followed You to the End, 2024. And it's such a thrill that when the exhibition closes, that we'll be able to continue to show Tracey's work in perpetuity for new generations of visitors. I'm also indebted to the dedication and hard work of many colleagues. My colleagues here at the YCBA, thank you all. The many colleagues at Tracey's 3 galleries, White Cube, Xavier Hufkins and Lorcan O'Neill, and some of you from the galleries are here. A warm welcome to you all. And I want to thank, where is he? Harry, where are you? Up there. I want to thank Harry Weller, Tracey Emin's creative director. In fact, he deserves a round of applause. Harry, couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. And of course, all of our thanks go first and foremost to Dame Tracey Emin herself. Welcome, Tracey. Welcome. Thank you. This is a long-awaited moment. I'm thrilled to have you here. And well, I just want to give you the floor, actually, if there's anything you wanna say before I ask you questions.
It's really hot in here. That's what I'm going to say. So anybody who needs to take their jacket off, their coat off, their shirt off, their trousers off, take it off now before we get going.
Okay, yeah, I'm feeling the heat myself. Yeah, it's all those bodies in the room. And, you know, we haven't done this for so long. It's just so beautiful to see you all here. Thank you so much for joining. Such a special occasion. And I wanted to start, Tracey, by just welcoming you and saying how thrilled we are to have your beautiful exhibition upstairs. And I'd love to just hear your thoughts about being back in the United States and having this museum exhibition of your paintings and what that means to you personally or professionally.
Well, it's really funny. I don't know how honest I should be with that question. Because when I arrived in America and I got in the car to take me to Manhattan, we were talking about America. And the driver in the front was going, And I said to him, what do you think? And he said, I'm too scared to say anything. And he's a driver of a car. He makes his living driving people from the airport and back. And he's scared to give his opinion about America. I didn't ask him why he was scared. I didn't have to. But my opinion of arriving in America this time is a lot different from other times when I've arrived. And to bring it round to what we should be talking about, I think there is no other time in history where art and creativity and freedom of speech and individuality is more important than ever.
Hear, hear.
So I feel really privileged and really like almost tearful and amazed that I'm sitting here now in this great educational institution that was started through philanthropy and generosity and the idea that education helps everybody, helps everyone. And that is another thing which is the most important thing now, that we, the educated, have to do the right thing and say the right thing and be on the right side. And that's all I've got. I'm not going to go into it, obviously, because I do want to get into America next time I arrive. So, but I think art now, and I think to have my exhibition here with the subjects that I make work about is also really integral and really important right now, because everybody that goes upstairs that looks at my show will read the titles and they will discuss those subjects, which Martina's already listed, you know, whether it's rape, abortion, teenage sex, whatever, those subjects will be discussed. So,
So true. And I think all of us here believe in the power of art and culture in, you know, making the world a richer, better place. So I thank you for saying that. We are in a strange moment. And, you know, being here together to celebrate art making, and Tracey's work in particular, I think it's very meaningful for us. So thank you for saying that. Yeah. You've totally derailed my questions here, which were to take us back to the beginning. We first met during the pandemic. We had a conversation online, and actually one of the things that I remember you saying to me was that you were so happy that we asked you to do a talk because it was Yale University, and you thought Yale presented a serious context. I don't know if you remember saying that,
yeah,
but it really stayed with me. Yeah.
Well, it is serious, isn't it? You know, it's important, and it's good for me, my first museum show in America, to be associated with such a strong educational platform, because it means that people will realize that my work is serious, and whatever they might have thought about me previously, they will have to rethink again, because I've been invited here. So I'm really pleased. Thank you.
I mean, on that note, so when we were planning this exhibition, a really magical thing happened, which is when we realized that, you know, all of the changing schedules with the pandemic, with the building closure, and then we realized that, in fact, we could reopen our museum with an exhibition with Tracey Emin, and to do so at the same time as an exhibition of JMW Turner. And I think, you know, it's not just a cute thing. It's about history and presenting your work in a historical context of British art. And I remember we talked about it. And in fact, when we published this little this little facsimile of Turner's last sketchbook, which is in the YCBA collection. You wrote a little love letter to Turner. I don't know if you want to read it.
Well, yeah, I can read it, but I haven't got my glasses on. So, so this is important. I didn't write it for Turner. I wrote it when I came home from walking across the same sands and looking at the same view as Turner. Then they asked me if I could contribute a piece of writing for the sketchbook. And I said, yeah, I got the perfect thing. And this is it. For Turner, that's how we all feel. We hate to leave. Winter sunset in a grey sky hangs over a Prussian blue deep sea. Giant waves or no waves at all. Sea like a crystal mirror, walking on flat, ice cold sand. I love you.
Thank you.
No, but I should say, so where I live in Margate, and that's where I grew up, and I've been all around the world, 1,000,000 times, 1,000 times, backwards, forwards, sideways, and I've done 1,000,000 different things. I've walked on 1,000 red carpets, I've worn designer clothes, I've been like honored, I've been berated, I've been slagged off, I've been exhilarated, I've been everything, but I've now gone home. So my experience of everything and then returning home is so humbling and so brilliant. It's like being born again or something. It's fantastic to go back to where I grew up, walk in the streets that I've always known and experience it all in a completely new way. But what's really lovely is that there's still all these elements which are exactly the same that Turner experienced. In Margate, we have the most amazing sunsets, and people don't believe it. They're like, Turner said they were the greatest sunsets in the world, and people laughed. But the reason why is because Margate's on the northeast coast, but it's facing west. So it means when the sun sets, instead of having a sun that's miles away west, we have a sun that looks like that's just on top of the horizon. So the sun is a big round, like Turner's sunset's a big round orange ball, and then it just slips really fast behind the sea. And as it does, you have this light effect of all the colors of the rainbow that shoot across the sea. That happens maybe only once a week or something, but it is pretty phenomenal. And so we have the Turner skies, the storms, the winds and everything. And to experience that element of nature on an everyday level is exactly the same as what Turner would have experienced. So back to what Martina said, it is absolutely brilliant and phenomenal that I'm doing my show at the same time as Turner, and we both experience exactly the same thing. So yeah, it's good.
I want to go back in time for a minute, and well, what I want to get to is to talk about painting. But one of your early, most famous installations is My Bed. Every time I've mentioned I'm doing a show with Tracey Emin, people say, "Are you showing my bed?" No, we're not showing my bed. But I wanted to mention it because there was a period of time when you returned to that piece and you showed it in conjunction with some of the great painters that you love. You showed My Bed next to some Turners, in fact, then with William Blake, with Francis Bacon. And I wondered what that meant to you and why you wanted to contextualize that piece in the history of painting.
Well, everyone that knows me quite well knows that I don't plan to do things. It's all quite subconscious and just sort of like a natural flow. And when I was asked to show at the Tate, show My Bed at the Tate, I chose the Francis Bacons because I wanted to see the Francis Bacons. So I thought, oh, this will give me a really good excuse to see some Francis Bacons. So I went down to the Tate store and saw every single Francis Bacon that they had. And I had a choice of whatever ones I wanted to hang with my bed. And it wasn't just the privilege of hanging the Francis Bacons next to my bed. It was the privilege of seeing the Francis Bacons this close from the store, looking at the paint, everything. So it's like my bed is sort of like a, what's the word? Like a vortex, or like a thing which can transport me through to other times, and look, and it's like a thing which gave me some power within art. The bed that I nearly died in is the bed that lifts me and transcends me and takes me to where I want to go. It's like a magic carpet in a way. So it was really brilliant that the bed gives me the power to say to a museum, oh, I'd like to see that. Oh, maybe I'll go for the. Oh, what do you think Frida Kahlo would look like with my bed, you know, or whatever. So, yeah, and I've had Monk. Forgot that, hung Monk with my bed. So that's quite a good line, isn't it? William Blake, Monk,
Yeah,
Turner,
Francis Bacon.
Francis Bacon. Yeah, it's kind of cool, isn't it? So, and as for my bed, can I just tell a really quick anecdote?
Yeah.
So when I first showed my bed, it was in Japan at Sagachio, which is an old rice factory, and it's in the sort of like industrial part of Tokyo. And this was in 1998, and it was the first place my bed was shown. And when I was there, my bed didn't arrive, and we were waiting. And basically, my bed at that time was 2 suitcases full of all the stuff that was surrounding my bed. It wasn't the real mattress, and it wasn't the bed. The bed had been remade. It was just a wooden plinth, and they'd got another mattress and put that on. And my bed basically was all the stuff and a hangman's noose that hung by the bed and the 2 suitcases. The suitcases, well, one was from when I was 15, when I first left home. The other suitcase was when I'd not left home, but mentally left home in 1996, where I bought myself a Samsonite suitcase. So I had these 2 suitcases full of all the stuff from the bed. The stuff in the bed was condoms, bandages, tablets, pills, dirty underwear, you know, all of that stuff. When it came through customs in Tokyo, on its own, there was no way they were letting it through. They wouldn't allow it, and they were going to incinerate it. And basically, without but this was in 1998. No one cared who I was. My bed wasn't famous, nothing. It was like, they were going to incinerate it all. And we had something like 24 hours to prove, A, I wasn't dead, hadn't been murdered, and was still out, and was a real person. We had to get a letter from Nick. Had to get a letter from somebody in the art world that was powerful. Nick Sirota wrote a letter from the Tate. He was the director of the Tate at the time. And the British Council wrote a letter as well. And I had nothing to do in the gallery for like 4 days. I was waiting for the bed to come, and the show was going to open in on the Saturday or whatever day, and the stuff wasn't there. And they said, "What are you going to do today, Tracey?" So I said, "Oh, I want to go to a temple, and I want to go to the needle temple because I used to sew all the time, and I want to go and, you know, honor people who sewed and everything." And this needle temple was way on the other side of Tokyo, like about 190 miles away or something. Really complicated journey. And I got my maps, and I was all ready to go off to the needle factory. And I go into the gallery, and I said, "Well, I'm going to leave now. I'll be back." And they went, "You can't go." So I said, "Why?" They said, "The needle factory now is all from people, needle factory. The needle temple is from people jacking up. It's all like heroin needles and stuff. It's not the kind of needles you thought." And I was really upset, and I thought, "Oh, I just got to go to a temple." But anyway, meanwhile, I decided to go to the hardware store. Went to the hardware store to buy whatever it was I needed, some tiny tacks to put my drawings up neatly. And on the way to the hardware store, there was this giant, beautiful temple, like incredible temple. So I thought, "Oh, Christ, that'll do. That's the temple." And there was a little gate, and it was open, and I went in the little gate and everything. And there was a thing where you sort of washed, and I washed, and I went into, and I prayed, and I thought, really want my bed to arrive, my stuff on my bed. Please, God, please let my stuff on my bed to arrive. Please, please, please. And anyway, go back to the gallery and they go, where have you been? So I said, oh, I went to the temple just down the road. I said, it was fun. I didn't realize it was there. It was really beautiful. It was like, they went, you couldn't have done. And I went, yeah, I did. I went, and they said, what did you do in there? And they said, how did you get in? And I said, the gate was open. And they went, but it's locked. You can't get in. And I said, no, it was, of course, the court, you know. And they said, what did you do then? And I said, well, I sort of washed, and then I went in, and then I prayed. And they said to me, oh, they said, that's the samurai warrior temple. You can't go in unless you're a samurai warrior, and all of this stuff. And you go, how did you, like, oh my God, kind of thing. They said, what did you pray for? And I said, they said, because whatever you prayed for, you must, like, you must champion and defend for the rest of your life. And I said, I prayed for my bed. And then phone call, stuff arrives, do my bed. And what am I most known for in the art world? What changed? What seminal? How many women make a seminal piece of art that changes art history, that changes our whole focus, our whole ideas about art history, about women in art history? My bed did it.
Yeah.
And it's just, a shiver goes through me. It's just unbelievable that I went to that temple that day. And my bed is, as I said, it's my magic carpet. It's held me up. And it's opened up a whole new world for me that's really beautiful. So that bed that I nearly died in is the bed that saved me and saved me and saved me.
That's an amazing story. Wow. One thing I've heard you say about my bed is you've described it as being like a painting. And I wondered if you could tell us what you meant by that.
Well, going back to Turner, when I was showed my bed at Turner Contemporary in Margate, it was the year I decided to have a sabbatical. So this sabbatical year was that I would do no publicity, no talks, no photographs, nothing. But Turner had already arranged for my bed to be shown, and there's a time limit that my bed has to be shown in because it can only have so much lux or daylight, and it was planned. So I said to the Turner, okay, do it. I'll just make, install the bed, but I'm not doing any publicity. I'm not doing anything. And they said, what about choosing the Turners to go with it? I said, you do it. You do it. Anyway, they chose, would you believe it, 6 bed Turner paintings of beds. And it was so embarrassing. It was like, and I just, oh no. So I got on the phone and they said, it's too late now. You can't change it because where the loans came from the tape, you have to do this like a year in advance or whatever. And I just got on the phone. I said, something to the tape, something terrible's happened. It's going to be really embarrassing. It's like my bed and loads of Turner's beds. I said, it was going to look really stupid. And they said, come in, what Turners do you want? And I went in and chose my Turners and looked at all the Turners. It was really fantastic. And there was one, which of course I can't remember the title, like Margate Sands or whatever. And it's fantastic. It's brown sand like that. And then it's this white, fluffy, sea type thing, clouds and everything. And at Turner Contemporary, I hung it directly, diagonally behind my bed. And I swear, I wish we had a slide of it. I swear to God, it's exactly like my bed. Exactly. You can't believe how similar it is. And I always said that the beauty of my bed was not about the reality of the bed, but it was how it affects our minds and what we see and what we get from it. And I realized when it was really good, people asked me about my bed, how do I feel about it in different places? And in Margate, it was the most sexiest. Definitely, it had the most fecundity and the most kind of like, oh God, what went on in there kind of thing. And it was because it hung next to Turner's painting, which looked exactly the same. It just looked like some sort of like wild, sheets had been thrown everywhere. If you saw this Turner painting, you'd say, what does it remind you of? And you would say, it looks like a bed that's really been slept in and loved in and everything. So the bed has textures, the bed has colors. I wish I could do a painting like the bed actually, because it's so subtle and so beautiful and so unshocking. So maybe I'm not going to, but I do lots of, so I wouldn't do any drawings or paintings of beds for years because I thought it was stupid. Like for me, Tracey with the bed to do the bed, but now I paint lots of beds and use that as a bit of a motif to spring from.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a theme upstairs.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about painting. The exhibition begins in 2007. And one of the paintings on view you made for, or during the year when you knew you were going to be exhibiting at the Venice Biennale. Tracey Emin was only the second woman ever to be offered a solo show in the British Pavilion in the history of Venice, and that was in 2007. At that time, I think people weren't expecting you to show paintings. And I remember you were writing in your independent column that you were renting a new space and you were making paintings. What prompted you to turn to painting for your Venice show?
Well, so I'd like to be really big about this and sort of be very like, but I'm still quite chippy about it. I've still got these sort of big giant chips on my shoulder. When I was asked to represent Britain for the Venice Biennale, it's a massive honor. It's really a fantastic thing. But they argued so much, people really didn't want me to get it, that I actually did receive notification of it only 6 months before Venice, when normally people have a year and a half, and I had 6 months. So I didn't really think I was going to get it. I thought at the end, I knew I was down to the last 3, but I thought they would flip and choose, to quote, not a wild, what's the word they used? There was a loose cannon, that was the word.
Oh, God.
Yes, anyway, as artists should be. Let the gallerist dealers, museum curators, historians, they can be the ones that look after us all. But us artists must have a level of wildness. And I had decided that I didn't want to do sewing anymore. I'd got rid of all my sewing things from my studio, and I rented this great big sort of garage space, and I decided that I only wanted to paint. And I'd been painting for about, I mean, I've always painted, but this time I was just only painting quite seriously. And for whatever reason it was, when it came round to Venice, I knew that I could do the best of Tracey Emin and hang all the blankets and the bed, do whatever. Or I went with my future, which was the paintings. And for some reason, whatever it was, when it come to actually curating the show and put it together, I didn't have the confidence to put all the big paintings in that were really insane and wild that I was doing. And I only put a few of them, and I didn't necessarily put the strongest work. And so Venice for me was a big disappointment. I disappointed myself. There was people who were so unkind to me in the reviews and everything that it was, actually my Venice wasn't bad. It was quite, there were some people who said that it changed their whole opinion about my work. My Venice wasn't like, wow, bang, you know, let's fly the British flags and everything. My Venice was about work and about thinking and about stepping stone towards my future that was a little bit shaky, but it was very honest. And also the subjects were rape, abortion, child sexual abuse, you name it. It was all those subjects that you're not supposed to talk about. And it didn't go down very well at all. And I haven't been back to Venice since. I can't go back because I think I'm going to, after all my cancer and all these awful things that happened to me, I can't go back to Venice because of the trauma. It's so pathetic.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So what was you saying about Venice?
Moving on.
No, but I did do an amazing, from that point though, and because they completely slagged me off, I just thought, fuck them, I'm painting. That's it. And that was it. I was away. And I did painting at the Royal College of Art I went from 1987 to 1989. And my friend David Dawson is here somewhere, who was at college with me at the Royal College of Art. And I learned a lot at the Royal College of Art about painting. And now I've been painting since, again, properly since 2006. And the saddest regret that I have is that I stopped for a period. I wish I'd never stopped painting. I love it. I love it. I love it so much. So
we have another painting in the show from 2007 that you didn't put into Venice, but you showed it in Beverly Hills later that year. And at the time you described that as your favorite show. It's called A Rose. And I hear from authority of Harry Weller that it was once called Turner, Eat Your Fucking Heart Out.
yeah.
And so you had these two big moments. You had Venice, and then you had the show at Gagosian in Beverly Hills, where you did show a lot of paintings.
Yeah, because I was really, so anybody who's a student here or a young artist or whatever, word of advice, if you get nominated for the Venice Biennale, right, and you're going to do a show in the following September, cancel that show and put your work into the Venice Biennale. Because I did a really brilliant show at Gagosian in Beverly Hills that nobody saw, that was a sellout show. Of course it was a sellout show, because all the paintings were fucking brilliant, weren't they? So we learn. But what's quite good about my Beverly Hills show at Gagosian is nobody saw it, so it's like I never did it.
Really? There's a beautiful catalogue with installation images.
Yeah, I know, but no one ever saw it. So, it's the only time I showed with Gagosian, an American gallery. And it was like another good learning curve for me, you know. So
you have quite a long history with the United States, right back when you did in the 90s, when you did your book tour. And you've shown in New York. There was a period of time when you showed with Lehman Mopin in New York. And then you did a show in 2016 with them, and then not again until 2023 when White Cube opened their space. What's your relationship been with New York, and what was it like to come back?
Well, there hasn't been a time where I've been in New York where I haven't cried. And when I did the Gramercy Park with Jay back in 1994, I cried. I was actually really happy and ecstatic. Those tears were good. 1995, I cried because I felt lost and unhappy. And I did a drawing called Sad Shower in New York. Since then, I have always cried in New York. I've seen New Yorkers being somehow hostile to me, and like wind tunnels, and like I'm walking in these dark shadows and everything's cold and it's sort of windy and strange. I just can't align myself properly with New York. It's too harsh for me, and it's really too noisy as well. I can't cope with the noise. And my career in America has been pretty useless up until the last, you know, those pop stars that never made it across the pond, as they say. I'm one of them. I'm 100% one of them, right? I never made it in America. I never did it. And the reason why I never did it is because I was very American. And also I made work which is sort of quite European. And America has all its own Americanisms that are fantastic. Its own art history, its modernism, everything. And I sort of it appeared that I subconsciously had turned my back on that, which of course I haven't. I'm completely connected to American painting, totally, 100%. Whether it's Jackson Pollock, Joan Mitchell, or whatever, I'm really related to those kind of painters because they're expressive. But America for me, and New York and my career, was a real downer for me in every single possible way, because I just couldn't, like, I couldn't get going. I couldn't get any leverage. So in 2016, I decided, like, I didn't want to come to America anymore. I just needed, and also I couldn't fly, because every time I flew long distance, my ears would bleed, or my nose would bleed, or my vagina would bleed, or my arse would bleed, or something. This is true. And it's because it was the pre-cancer stuff. And so I just decided to have a year's sabbatical and just work in France in my, it was the year my mum died as well. So, and that year I just pushed and pushed my painting as much as I could. I didn't go out, I wasn't social, I didn't mix, and I was just in my house in France with Harry most of the time, painting, and it was like one of the best things that I ever did. It cleared me of all the lot of bullshit. It cleared me, stopped the red carpet syndrome, it stopped the fame, glamour, stopped the photography, stopped everything like that. And I just totally focused in on the painting and knew that that's really what I wanted to do. And the good thing about it all is that my failure in America previously is really, really good, because now I really, really appreciate my success. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate the fantastic show I had with Jay in New York last year or the year before. I really appreciate the beautiful gallery Jay has in New York that I show in. There's all these things now that are really positive. Whereas if it had all happened to me when I was younger, I wouldn't have known what I've got or what I have. So, and to think about when we go back to the days of the Gramercy Park, oh my God, I was everybody's darling, you know, they couldn't get enough of me when I was sitting in bed in Gramercy Park with my blanket over me. And then after that, it kind of, I don't know, it just never worked. So,
Well, welcome back to the
Thank
United
you.
States.
yeah, I'm just being honest. I'm not being, I don't want to, just because everything's all right now, I want to let you know how I got here. Not that I've always been here, because I haven't.
And now you're here with painting specifically,
Yeah.
which you've really dedicated yourself to over the last couple of decades.
Yeah. And also it's like, I think when you're younger, you have to ride on your ego to keep you going. Otherwise you could be knocked down. You have to be sort of, the ego is not, it's not conceit, but it's like you have to really believe in yourself, because otherwise other people won't, and they'll, like, you know, like Venice and everything, you'll get battered around. But now my ego, as much as you might not believe this, is not in this room. It's upstairs above us in my paintings, in my work. That's where it goes. So that's another thing with age and everything. You understand that a lot more. So,
Oh, I am conscious of time, and I promised all of you that we would hear your questions as well. So maybe we could pause here and just invite anybody here in the audience that would like to ask Dame Tracey a question. Wait for the microphone, because it's being live streamed. And also, if you're online, you can email your questions to us. Who's going to break
We have one here.
up there? Yes.
Hello, Dame Tracey. Thank you so much for being here. Your work is so inspiring, and I'm so honored that we get to appreciate it here at the YCBA. My question is in reference to your comment about why some of your work hasn't always landed with American audiences, because when I see your work, these are some of the first of your works I'm lucky enough to encounter. They feel so relevant and immediate to me, and something that I can understand. And so when you're painting these bodies that are kind of universal, no matter what your culture is, I'm wondering why you feel that doesn't kind of land, or lands in some places, not others. So thank you.
no, I think it's now, it's like being in tune with the zeitgeist. Now my work is needed in America more than ever. So I feel now is my time. So that's what I was trying to explain. It doesn't matter about the failures before or anything. It's now that matters, this time right now. My work now resonates to everybody. Doesn't matter what race, color, creed, religion, or whatever. It's about the human experience. It's about being human. And by being human, we get to know ourselves. And by knowing ourselves, we decide whether we want to do the right thing or the wrong thing. And depending on our level of honesty and our perception of everything that's around us and how we deal with it, it means it affects the decisions we make in life. So if I'm making work about really life important situations, and especially subjects which people maybe now soon will be afraid to talk about, let's say abortion, for example, in well, can you imagine in some states now, if I said that, I'd be dragged out of here. So, and being pro-choice as well, you know, so all of these things really, really matter, you know, and I think that now is my time with my work, as you said. And another thing which really helps me is it's another generation too. I'm 62 nearly. So the people who are looking at my work are 20. So it's new generations of people that aren't interested in the previous politics, the YBAs or anything like that. They're looking with some purity of just the work. So I'll take their opinion from them, just you or whoever, just looking at my work. You're not interested in all the claptrap and baggage that I had from 30 or 40 years ago. You're interested in looking at my painting now. And that's what I'm interested in. So we're in the right time. We're together on this idea.
Your hand here. Daniel.
Thank you so much. I've loved your work since high school, so this is really meaningful to finally see you. I had a question about both the wonderful poem that you read at the beginning, the letter, and some of the lyrical text that appears in your paintings. I've also read in some interviews before that you enrolled in a very transformative philosophy class, and that reading is a big part of your artistic work. I was just wondering how your identity as a writer, as a reader, as someone who engages with the literary side, shapes your work as an artist and your visual thinking.
Okay, so what my work as a writer, how does it affect my visual work, and how do I feel about being a writer? First of all, I'm not a writer. I'm an artist, and if people always say to me, what would you have done if you hadn't been an artist? My mum always says I would have died, which I think is probably number one. My second choice would have been an estate agent, right? If I'd have chose it. And I could ruin the whole talk now and tell you this long, elaborate story about my alter ego as the estate agent from when I was 16 and what happened to me. And because I love property and I just love houses, property, everything like that. So, and then, but in reality, if I really, supposing now I couldn't paint or whatever, couldn't make art, which is absolutely impossible, I would be a writer if I had to make a living. And it would be painful because I can't I hit a deadline. When I used to write for the newspaper, I used to do a column every week for the Independent, and I would get my column had to be in on Thursday at 6 o'clock. I'd get my column in on Thursday at 7 o'clock. When I wrote for the Evening Standard recently, I did it for 9 months, and my column had to be in by Thursday night. But the newspaper was printed on Friday morning, and I knew that it went into print at 9:30. So on Friday morning, I'd wake up at 7 and think, what should I write about today? And then I just write it, right, on my phone, like that, send it off. Anyway, occasionally, I'd wake up and go, oh my God, it's Friday, it's Friday. I forgot it's Friday. And it was 10 o'clock or something, you know, and I'd miss my deadline. Or I once had a migraine and wrote it and it made absolutely no sense. And I did this column for 9 months, and then I decided I couldn't do it anymore because I couldn't. My editor said to me, why don't you write it on Monday? And I said, because it won't feel the same. It's like watching a live football match or something, you know? You cannot know the score and watch it later, but it doesn't feel the same as when you're doing it live. So I'm not a writer, okay? But I spent a vast amount of time writing. I'll probably write, not much, 2,000-3,000 words a week, something like that, but without even realizing. And my book, Strangeland, I handed over a box of writing to the editor, and then he put it into 3 sections, Fatherland, Motherland, and Tracyland. And that was just from a box of writing that I just had. And now my next book will be the same. My next book that gets published will be from the writing that I've done, not the writing that I'm going to do. But if I became ill again and couldn't move or couldn't paint or whatever, then I will just lay on a chaise and I will dictate my last of the trilogy to Harry, and Harry will just type it all up, and that's what I'll do. So I'll never stop working, but my writing for me is like an extension of my thoughts and my mind. And after I finished art school, I went and did a part-time philosophy course for 2 years. And it was fantastic because up until that moment, I'd always thought I was sort of academically quite stupid. And I realized when I did philosophy, I wasn't stupid at all. That a great big area of my brain had never been used before. And doing the philosophy class was like weightlifting for my brain. And parts of my brain started to wake up and work in a way that had never worked before. And it gave me, so for the first time I could understand, say, minimalism or abstraction to a level, or music that I could never listen to before, suddenly I could understand and hear. So by doing the philosophy, it opened up sections of my brain, which also, as you said, it coincided very nicely with my writing as well, with the way that I think. So, and people, years ago, one of my friends said to me, what do you like doing? What do you do in your spare time? And I said, I think. And I do, I will think. I spend so much time thinking. I love it. And if I don't have time to think, I get frustrated and upset and moody and strange. I need to think. It's really important. And writing is an extension of thinking. And anybody young here who makes art, if when you leave art school or whatever, and you haven't got any money and you haven't got a studio and you haven't got any money for paint, you always have the money for a notebook and a pen. Always. That's all you need to be an artist, because you need to be a thinker.
Yeah, well said. Maybe one more question.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk. I'm curious to know a little bit more about your sculpture, and what exactly do you think sculpture is able to communicate that your painting might not be able to do, or maybe your painting is able to communicate something that your sculptural work isn't able to do?
My sculptures are, so the year I took the sabbatical, I decided that I wanted, that I for years I'd been wanting to make a large bronze sculpture, figurative sculpture of myself, but I didn't know how to do it. And I tried different ways that hadn't worked and things. And then I decided that year that was going to be one of the things I was going to do. So I learned the process of, I was very good friends with Louise Bourgeois and Jerry Gorovoy, who's Louise's long-term assistant. And after Louise died, they introduced me to the foundry that she worked with. And there I learned the lost wax technique and learned lots about sculpture. And they went every day with me to the foundry, and I learned lots and everything, and then carried on. Now I work with a foundry in London called AB Foundry, and Harry is actually the main, he's like, I just make the sculptures and Harry does all the rest. In charge of putting the giant bronzes together and everything. And they're very complex. So the creative bit for me is just making the sculpture with my hands. So there is no difference between making the sculpture with my hands and painting. Both of them are with my hands, except the sculpture is more lazy because it's just me going like this, and it's when I can't paint. So and the sculptures are they start off really small. Some of them, we just saw one on the screen. Actually, I'd make fully, the whole thing, but it's more like and I love the giant ones because you can see where my fingerprints have gone in and where I've touched it. So there's a lot of people that make huge sculptures and they just look like they're a lump of polystyrene or something, whereas mine don't look like that. They look like me. They really have me. And the most ambitious one is in Oslo, at Norway, outside the Munch Museum, and that's called The Mother, and that's 9 meters high. So, and that's something I learned from Louise Bourgeois. Louise worked really tiny, and Louise worked really big. Nothing stopped her with scale. So that was what I learned from Louise in terms of sculpture, which was great. I want one more question,
Mm.
but I want a really hardcore question. I want a really difficult question. I want a question that makes me squirm in my seat. And
We have an
Yeah,
online
you have
question.
one? You have
Someone
one?
from online is asking this question. I don't know if it suits your criteria, but it's how do you know when a painting is complete?
That's not what you're looking for.
No, okay.
well, actually, it's still quite a good question. I don't know. So Harry often has to come and take the painting and put it behind 4 others, so I don't paint over it or ruin it. And often in the old days, when I used to drink, I'd have an amazing painting and and I'd send the photos when I was in France, say, send the photos to Jay or Xavier or Lorcan or anyone, who's great painting. And they'd all go, oh, what a fantastic painting. And I'd go to the studio the next morning, I'd go, oh no, because I painted over it or something. So, and then now there's a painting which we've exhibited twice, I think, that's coming back to me, which I'm going to paint over. So I'm not, I'm sometimes something feels finished and then later on I think, no, it definitely wasn't, and I get it back. So yeah, but that's not the squirmy kind of question.
Yeah, so I think the challenge is for the last hardcore question from the audience. No pressure.
Thank you. Hi, thank you so much for coming. When I was 14, you were like God to me. So I hope that ups the stakes to begin. And I think your work was so important because it taught me new ways in which I could be a woman. So I wonder now in this moment that's so deeply regressive for women, in which ourselves are sort of enforcing this regressiveness to some extent. I wonder, where's your thinking at when you think about like yourself as a woman in relation to your practice, to your private life, to your public life?
Being a woman right now is pretty fantastic as an artist because we got lots to say that hasn't been said before. And being an artist is being like one of the greatest inventors of all time. There's no point in, I would say there's no point in going to a fortune teller and hearing what you already know. And it's like that when I make a painting, I want to see something I haven't seen before. I want to find out something I didn't know before. And I'm telling all the men in this room, there's lots you don't know about women. There's lots that women can say and do that they haven't done yet, and they will. And within art, that is one of the areas that's going to open up so much. You know, incredibly. Right now, we're just talking about last 100 years of women making art that we know about. I mean, I know it's been much longer, but you know, in the cave paintings, the people who did the most cave paintings, they realized now were women, because the men were out like clubbing bits of meat and stuff and whatever. The women stayed at home and painted on the walls. So what, and telling the story and telling the history and making us aware of what's happening. There has never been a more important time for women, because as we all know, if women ruled the world would not be in the state that it is now.
Yes.
There you are. And I tell you what, I'm just an artist saying that. And I can sit here and say it to 100, 200 people. Imagine if you're a woman that is in a different position saying that. It's going to change. It has to.
What an amazing moment to end, and thank Tracey for her incredible work, for being here, her persistence, and congratulations, Tracey.